because I joined that mastermind in 2021, and I thought I was doing pretty good at the time, and I had been investing in some in real estate. But once I joined that, my net worth literally exploded. It more than doubled in a short period of time, and that was just by being around people like you guys that were playing life at a whole nother level.
All right, what's up, everybody? I am Mitchell England, co-host of 0 to 100 podcast. We are all about time freedom through cash flow real estate. And selfishly, we get to talk to amazing people who are living this right now. Today, I've got my amazing co-hosts, Gabe, and Travis is here as well. I'm just joking. Travis is amazing as well.
Ouch. Who's the bully now, Mitch? I keep saying, who's the bully now?
I know. Well, Travis actually stood me up this morning on a call, so now I'm just like, I'm trying to let it go. I'm trying not to hold a grudge. Anyway,
just paying you back for last weekend or last week.
I know we're horrible partners to each other.
Well, I'm glad I could be here to help you out, Mitch.
Yeah. Thanks, Gabe. Gabe, we just use you as a bounty anyway. So
you're probably like marriage therapy, Gabe, kind of, with their partnership.
He keeps us together. He keeps us together for sure. So guys, we talk about cash flow freedom through real estate. We talk about, saying bye to the W-2, getting out of the grind, using real estate to become free. And we're not flippers, we're not developers, we're not spending time on a lot of those other things, wholesalers, which I'm not saying that's bad, right? You can do really well, but we're very, very laser focused on how do you go out into the marketplace, find awesome cash flow assets, put those together with investors or creative seller financing, or however you do that, take them down and use that cash flow to get free. So today we've got an amazing guest, Garth Hatch. I'll do a quick intro and I'll probably say a couple words wrong because Garth is a dentist by trade and there's some big words in his bio. So Garth grew up in Riverside, California. Dad was a fireman, fourth of 6 kids. So I'm assuming this is a very loud house, probably a lot of fun growing up. It's like a little football team. Yeah. Tons of love, but you mentioned not a lot of money. So I'm interested to dive into that as we dive in here. Had a wealthy uncle, which you kind of labeled your rich dad. I like that in your bio. I'm assuming was an awesome role model there. So started investing in real estate at the U.S. Army Dental Corps in 2003, and then has continued up until now. Bought an endodontic. Did I say that right?
Yeah, endodontic. Good job, man. Good job, Mitch. Yeah, endodontic. Yeah.
Endodontic practice in 2010. Grew from a single doctor to 5 endodontists. 2 locations in Kennewick, Washington, and then sold it in 2022 for a 7-figure payday. Super awesome. Currently invests in rental property, single family, duplexes, triplexes, a mobile home park, and commercial dental buildings, short-term rental properties. Sounds like a lot of, I'm interested to get into your portfolio, in other words. And the last note here, founder of Lifestyle Dentist, which I definitely want to talk about because I know you're making a huge impact in dentists' life, helping them get free, automate practices, that kind of stuff. So Garth, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad to have you.
Hey, good to be here with you guys. Gabe, Travis, and Mitch, all 3 of you are my role models, mentors, and yeah, it's an honor to be on your show, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on the 0 to 100 podcast show.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, we speak highly of you all the time. It's funny how we're your role models, but I would also add you to my list of role models. So
that's weird. Travis and I speak highly of you. Mitch was talking shit about you.
That doesn't surprise me. I don't know why that doesn't surprise me.
Right before he found out you were coming on the show, he was I don't even know if I can say.
His head. He's trying to outshine my bald head. So
Mitch changes the subject. Yes, Mitch is toxic. So I love that you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you're a freaking doctor, dentist, right? I mean, you're a doctor. Yeah. You're an investor. So you're everything I am except the doctor part, because I am not a fraction. I don't have a fraction of your intelligence. So kudos to being a badass. So all right. So I think you're calling in from Oregon,
or Washington. Yeah. Tri-Cities, Washington, West Richland to be exact. West Richland, Washington, which is the sunny side of the state of Washington. Yeah. So yeah.
For some reason, I thought you were down in Eugene with Gabe, but I think I think it's like everybody moves to Maui to be with Brandon Turner. I thought everybody moves to Eugene to be with Gabe. I would.
It would be worth the drive to be with Gabe, but I don't like the rain. I guess put it that way, and a lot of the other things on the west side. But
I don't know what you're talking about, Garth. I just don't know what you're talking about.
Why don't you dive into that? Let's get you canceled, buddy.
I was like, "Where's Garth going with this?" Garth, let's dig into your story a little bit, because I want to hear the backstory, like young Garth. But you and we've known each other for quite a few years. We've had a lot of conversations about a lot of different things. And one thing that I find very interesting is, a lot of dentists, a lot of doctors, that's kind of the pinnacle. That's the peak of their career. And ever since I've known you, it's always been not that isn't an accomplishment, because it is, but you've always been someone that I've seen as someone that wants freedom, that chases freedom, that actually understands, like, you know what, I accomplished this thing. I became a dentist, but I actually, there's more to life, and I want to achieve that through cash flow real estate. So let's kind of talk about the backstory, but kind of how and kind of when in your head had you decided there's actually more than, I don't want to be a dentist for the rest of my life?
Yeah, no, great question, Gabe. Thanks. And as you mentioned, grew up in Riverside, California. Big family, a lot of love, not a lot of money. My dad was a fireman, and that was kind of my original plan, is to be a fireman like my dad. I had both my dad and my uncle. I call him my Uncle Noel, and he was kind of my mentor, hero growing up. He was a state boxing and wrestling champion back in the day when they had wrestling and boxing in high school. Wow. And also, which is awesome. Yeah, no, he was legit. And he originally started as a fireman like my dad, and then branched off and became a real estate investor in the 60s in Southern California, which, talk about perfect timing for real estate investing. Jeez. And just grew. He and his wife were very frugal. They just kept buying property, and eventually became a multimillionaire. And that's what I wanted in my life. Like, he was the example of a man's man, and also became very wealthy, and also had a great family life, very generous man, good man. And so that was my rich dad, I call him. My dad, even though we weren't poor, but call him my poor dad. He was a great father, and as I get older, I'm so grateful for him, because he always taught me that I could do anything I wanted to. He had a little bit of the taste of real estate. Like, we would buy a rental property, or not even a rental property. We'd buy a property in the early spring, fix it up, and then sell it in summer, and that would pay for our vacation or a new car or something like that. So they'd make a couple thousand, and it was good, but they never were able to really build wealth. And so it was kind of a lesson of what I wanted and not wanted. And I really didn't know how I was going to get there. I just knew I wanted to be a millionaire. I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill when I was 14 years old.
Great book.
And,
yeah. Did your uncle do that to you, or did you just like pick that up randomly?
No, it was just on my dad's shelf. Yeah. And it was, because growing up, again, money always was tight. And that was one thing that stood out to me. I remember one time in particular, my older sister was getting ready to go to college, and they needed to buy her a new coat. And they were literally struggling to have enough money to pay for schooling and buy her a new coat. And I remember just a lot of different times when it was a source of stress for my parents. And I just knew whatever I did, I wanted to be a millionaire like my Uncle Noel. I didn't want to have money to be something controlling me.
Garth, at what ages were that? When did you realize that your uncle had shifted from being a firefighter to being a real estate investor? How old were you?
He had already become a millionaire when I was, as long as I can remember, because he started in the 60s. I was born in 75. So he had already been where I wanted to be as long as I knew him. And it was more from a distance. I mean, we'd get together, a couple times a year for family things, but that was about all I knew at the time. But I knew he made a lot of money and had a lot of real estate, and I knew that was a good path. So I did know one way or the other I wanted to go into real estate. I just thought fireman, because that's what my dad was. That's how he started. And that was kind of the thought. I got into college at BYU and found out they didn't have a fire science major. And so I'm like, well, I guess I won't be a fireman, and I'll do physical therapy just because I liked exercise. It literally was about that much thought. And went all the way through almost graduating college, and applied for a physical therapy program, didn't get in. And it also got me thinking about, is this what I really want? A friend of mine was going into dentistry at the time, and he's like, hey, it's a great lifestyle and they make a lot of money. I'm like, sign me up. That's literally all I knew. I did not have a dad or uncle or somebody that was a dentist. I just thought, okay, they can make a lot of money. And so maybe I can do that and then buy real estate. So that was literally my path. Luckily, I think, feel like God was guiding me that way, because otherwise there's no way I would have even chosen that. It wasn't even on my radar. So it was kind of funny.
I love how, by the way, two takeaways. It's amazing. And Mitch always talks about this. It's one of the few intelligent things he says. Like, you're impressionable at 14, and that Think and Grow Rich is like that software. You have this like impressionable like hard drive or processor, and like you downloaded at an early age, like Think and Grow Rich. Like, you probably don't remember anything about that book. Maybe you do, but like how it starts to mold like the way you look at the world. So big takeaway there. Get your kids. I mean, I'm always talking to my kids about passive income and like providing value and all the things that entrepreneurs think about. Also, things happen to you or happen for you, not to you. Like you didn't get accepted into the physical therapy program, and you became a dentist, which I would argue is way better. No harm against your, no offense against your physical therapists out there. But I mean, like, yeah, dentist, like if you like, oh, he's a dentist. Oh yeah, man, that guy, yeah, he's got money. But it's also interesting how you went into dentistry, not because you wanted to be a dentist, maybe you did, but it was to make a lot of money so you can invest in real estate. It was sort of like a means to an end, which a lot of people feel like becoming a doctor is the end. That's like, you have arrived, you got the champagne, you're in first class, like you're a doctor. But a lot of people, but I do know a lot of doctors that become doctors or dentists and things like that, but you're still trading hours for dollars, right? You're still like doing the thing. So what great foresight for a young guy. You're way smarter than Mitch and I. Gabe had a lot more foresight, I think, but like way smarter than us. Like,
well, cool. where you guys ended up faster than I did. I still look up to you guys, because you did it without a bunch of debt and or time debt. I was lucky to go through dental school on an Army scholarship, so I didn't have any money debt, but I had 7 years of my life debt, and so you guys really do it without that.
So you were a commissioned officer in the Army then as a dentist. I never knew that about you. That's cool.
Yeah.
That makes reason we're all vets here. Thank you.
I know. That's what I was thinking. All four of us are vets. That's pretty impressive.
I do think we've had a few different military guys on. I mean, I love it. I love it. Garth, when did you buy your first property? Because you went through dental school. You've had real estate on your radar pretty much your entire life. What was your thought process like while you're in dental school? Why you started practicing dentistry? At what point did you pull the trigger and buy real estate? And kind of a second question to that, at any point were you like, you know what, I'm just going to focus on this and not do real estate? Or was real estate always on the forefront of your mind as you were going through dental school, as you opened up your own practice and kind of going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. Great question. It was a little of both. I always knew I wanted to be financially free, and whatever vehicle would get me there the best, that was the plan. So I had the example of my uncle with real estate. I also, when I was in dental school, some guys were day trading in stocks. It was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm like, maybe I'll become wealthy trading stocks. And I took my whole life savings of $2,000, which, now it's kind of laughable. Back then, that was like all the money I had, and became a day trader in between my dental school classes.
I love that.
And bought some real winners like MCI WorldCom and things like that. Lost every penny. Literally, I lost all the money when the stock market crashed. But looking back, it was probably a blessing, because it put a real bad taste in my mouth for the stock market.
Can't control it.
And so, and I just felt like real estate I'd have more control over, and that's the way I wanted to go. And I looking back, I wish I would have done it even during dental school, because I probably could have. I just figured I didn't have really money to do it. And so I bought my first property when I finished dental school, went in the Army. I did my officer training, and then moved to Columbia, South Carolina for my first assignment. And we bought a house then for $98,000. And I remember
what year was that?
About that. That was 2003.
2003.
First property. And I did a kind of like a house hack before I really knew that was possible. But I I bought our first property, and kudos to my wife. She was totally on board with us growing through real estate. Bought the first property right when I got out for 98 grand. A year later, we bought another house just down the street in the same neighborhood called the Summit in South Carolina. If anybody knows Columbia, South Carolina, it was in the Summit. Bought another house down the street that was a little bigger, a little nicer, which my wife didn't mind. And we moved into that one, rented the first one, even bought a third property in that same neighborhood, just straight as a rental. That was the third time that we bought. And then we moved to Augusta, Georgia to do my endodontic residency. We were in Columbia for 2 years and then moved to Augusta, Georgia. And then bought a house there that was like a house hack. It was, the tax value was like $280,000 and we bought it for, I think, around $180,000. So it was listed way lower than it should have been. And my wife actually found the deal and we went and looked into it. It was a foreclosure where the people did this huge addition. It was over 4,000 square feet with the addition, but they never finished it. It wasn't permitted. And they had growing lights up on the top floor of the
growing
house.
What, Garth?
You know what? They must have been really into nursery or gardening or something.
I'm surprised they didn't finish the remodel.
Right.
With all the
growing.
I'm
sure they were making pretty good money with whatever they're growing.
Yeah,
but for whatever reason,
how did you finance those first four properties?
So the first three were just on the MLS. My wife looking, and I take that back. I think MLS, and I think my wife found one just driving by. There's one listed on a street that we drove by, and we're like, wow, this looks pretty nice. Let's check it out. And so it was basic driving by or MLS. The third one in Augusta, my wife found online just looking. I think she was looking for foreclosures and things at the time.
And you bought and you financed with traditional financing?
All of them were traditional financing. Yeah, at the time. It was pretty easy luckily then to get financing, especially with the military.
And an interesting takeaway here. I just wanted to, before we move on. Mm-hmm. So you found a house that was probably, at least $100,000 under market, probably more because the tax assessed value is always less than what it's really worth. That highlights, we talk about this all the time on the show, like that highlights how you can make a lot of money in real estate is because it is an imperfect market. There's no way you could have accidentally found a stock that was worth, $150 a share for $79 a share. And whoops, because the stock market's a perfect market. But we've seen this. We made millions of dollars based on buying property that maybe it was a residential broker selling a commercial asset that didn't understand how to value it. So yeah, there you go. An imperfect market. You immediately walk into $200,000 in equity, whereas like saving that kind of money on a, I guess you were probably an 01 or 02 salary is like really hard. But the minute you sign on the dotted line, you just took $100,000 minimum pop to your balance sheet. So interesting compared to stocks, real estate versus stock. So.
Yes. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Garth, because, and I love that, by the way, imperfect market, you can find these opportunities, but I think a lot of people do not take advantage of real estate or the imperfect market because of debt. Because they're like I know, like I was in the military and it was like, I was like trying to, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich in these books. So I knew that there was good debt and bad debt. Like I knew the basics of that, but like, did you have a pretty good relationship early on with debt? And were you like, hey, it sounds like your wife did too, but like, did you just look at that differently? Because I'm assuming a lot of your classmates were going, no, stay out of debt. Why are you buying another house? Like, what can you describe your relationship with debt at that time?
Yeah, it was, I'd say a little of both, because I knew real estate was the way to go, and the more properties I could get long-term was where it was going to help build that wealth. But I was scared, honestly. Even the $98,000, that was what I'd make in a whole year, maybe more than I'd make as a dentist in the Army. And so that caused some anxiety. Luckily, each time my wife was on board, she was totally supportive of it. In fact, the property, it was $180,000 that was well under market. I was probably the most stressed about that because I'm like, $180,000, this is insane. Looking back, it's laughable, but it was just way more. Like we could have bought something for $115,000 in Augusta and we would have been fine, but it was way more than our comfort level. But it was so undervalued that we're like, this is a great house that's undervalued. And we were able to even house hack that. We lived in the top 2,500 square feet, rented the basement. We did a build out in the basement that had a bathroom and 3 bedrooms. And we put in a kitchenette and rented it to another military couple. while we were living there. And so our mortgage was less than it would have been had we just bought a regular house as we were renting the basement out. I guess each time was a little scary, but each time we did it, it ended up paying out well. And I think it helped us both get comfortable with debt, because it is interesting, again, with like my whole experience with the stock market and real estate. I could not get a loan from the bank to buy stocks, but
You still
the bank,
can't. Yeah.
yeah, I still can't, right?
But ask, what was your down payment on that 180,000? I mean, it was what, 10, 20%?
I'm trying to remember if we even bought that with a VA loan, because I know some of them were
zero down.
Yeah, which would have been like hardly anything down. Yeah.
Maybe you put zero down, maybe you put 5% down on 180 on a house worth maybe 280,000. Well, when that house appreciates, the entire $280,000 is appreciating. So you go in with zero or very little down, but you're getting appreciation on the whole thing, which is the power of leverage. Again, compared to the stock, this isn't like a podcast to bash the dumb stock market. Joking, but like, yeah, you couldn't get a loan on that.
But I think that is the conversation around debt. I mean, a lot of us are taught that debt is bad, and consumer debt is not good debt. But real estate is the most leverageable asset on the planet, right? And so when people understand debt, that there's good debt and bad debt. I mean, I had someone the other day saying, I'm trying to get out of debt, and I'm saying, I want to be in as much debt as possible. Now, when I say I want to be in as much debt as possible, it's because I want debt that's backed by cash flowing real estate. That's very, very different than buying a bunch of stupid shit that doesn't put money in your pocket. But I think a lot of us are taught like debt is bad, debt is bad, debt is bad. Because I remember the same thing when I started buying properties. Like, hey, people say, that's a lot of debt. And I'm like, I don't care. It's leveraged real estate that cash flows. My tenants
There's no way I would be where I'm at without debt. Like coming from nothing, like all of us, like you've got to get out there and leverage. And the thing that Kiyosaki said that really hit home for me, I don't know if it was one of his books or his audio tapes. That's how old I am, tapes. But he said, like, you go into it. Don't laugh, Mitch. You go into a bank and you say, hey, I would like to borrow $100,000 to buy $1 million worth of your stock. And they're going to laugh at you. Like, but it's your stock. They're like, yeah. We don't want our own stock as collateral. Oh, but you want to buy an apartment complex? Yes. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Like that. To me, that just put a punctuation, put a period at the end of that sentence. That just tells the whole story. Without
that, agree 100%. They'll line up to give you a loan for real estate, but they won't in their own bank stock.
No, it's bad collateral.
So Garth, you didn't stop there, because not only did you build your real estate portfolio up, you also built up your practice, your endodontics practice, and you sold that for a 7-figure exit. So let's kind of journey into that, how you continue to build your real estate portfolio and you built out your own practice and then went on to sell that practice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I got out of the military. I was, after Augusta, went to Germany for 3 years, was stationed there. We didn't buy anything at the time. It was right during the 2008 recession and everything was going crazy. And even then, when I was getting out, I always knew I wanted to be the captain of my own ship. I wanted to own my own business, my own practice, and be able to have the freedom to live where I wanted to. But it was scary. Even in 2010, the market was not doing well. A lot of dental practices were struggling. The real estate market was scary. People were thinking it's going to be bad for the next 20 years. This is what we want. It was a little scary because I didn't have any money backing me. But I figured, okay, I've got 4 young kids. I've got to make this work. There's, failure is not an option. So when I was in the military, there's a lot of hurry up and wait, which you guys probably all understand, where I'd have to be there at 5 a.m, but then you sit around for 3 hours. When I was in the military, I did as much, I call it my MBA, where I got a master's in book accumulation, where I would buy books, CDs, audio tapes, anything I could get on business growth, on marketing, on real estate, and took good advantage of the time then when I was in the military, where when I finally made the jump, I knew a lot. And I think my biggest strength was I was willing to try things. A lot of things worked. A lot of things did not work. I made probably more mistakes than right decisions, but I was just willing to throw up whatever would stick on the wall. And if it worked, I would do more of it. If it didn't, I would abandon it. But that did help. And so I got out 2010. In fact, I found a guy that was getting ready to sell his practice. I contacted him direct. My wife had family living in the Tri-Cities, Washington, Eastern Washington. We visited out there, really liked it. So I contacted cold a couple endodontists. One office was like, yeah, we may or may not have a spot. The other guy this was like 2 years out. He's like, yeah, actually 2 years from now, my daughter's going to be ready to graduate. That might be good timing. And so let's stay in contact. And we did. I ended up buying his practice, and that worked out well. As soon as I got there in July 2010, I just did anything I could on marketing. I put up like yard signs around town that say, got toothache, call Columbia River Endodontics. Didn't get a single patient from that, but I tried it.
Dental bandit signs. It's like a wholesaler.
Mm-hmm. I've never heard. I love that, but I love the scrappiness. But because people often think like, wait, you bought a business? Like, I can't do that. And this is a real estate podcast, but I grew my company. I bought businesses. How did you buy that business? Was it a seller contract? Was it SBA? Like, because there's financing is also the same with businesses as like real estate. So
yeah, this one, my first business with the practice was like a dental mortgage company. They would loan on dental practices. It was around 7.5%, I think, at the time. It was still a big chunk, but I had some money saved from that first chunk of money. We had about 90 grand saved. That was all our savings. But the fact that we had something, the bank was impressed, because most people coming out of dental school or out of the military, they are broke. They don't have anything. And so they let us use that as collateral to buy the business. And most of it was financed with that initial practice. And so we still had some money available for buying equipment and other things like that. Yeah, even there, that was scary, but it paid off very fast. The other thing I did smart was I got a good consultant right out of the military named Ace Gorig, who was a successful dentist and endodontist. And at the time it was $25,000, which was a lot of money. Even now it's a lot of money, but back then it was a crazy amount of money. But it paid off within 2 or 3 months, just because when you get out, you just don't know what you don't know. I mean, there's literally so many things that you don't know, and there's so much value to have somebody you can call when you're in a pinch, or just something comes up, or something with an employee. You can call up and say, hey, what would you do in a situation like this? It was so helpful, and that really taught me the value of having good mentors, good consultants, and throughout my career, continue to pay for those and masterminds and other things like that.
How important is that, Garth? Would you, if you had to trade, say, your net worth or your network, which one would you rather have?
Boy, that's tough to say. I mean, now I've got enough assets, it'd be hard to trade my net worth. But with that said, with the network, I could quickly get it back. And so it'd be almost like a coin toss, because your network is so valuable. I mean, that's how I know you guys. I mean, we're all in a group called GoBundance. Even with where I was because I joined that mastermind in 2021, end of 2021, and I thought I was doing pretty good at the time, and I had been investing in real estate. But once I joined that, my purchasing of real estate, my net worth literally exploded. It more than doubled in a short period of time, and that was just by being around people like you guys that were playing life at a whole nother level.
And I love hearing you say that, Garth. And let me ask you this, because I'm curious about that. I'm in multiple masterminds, as you said. We met through GoBundance. I'm a huge believer in getting in the room, right? Like being around A players, right? How much of that? And I'm asking this because I know my own answer, because I get asked this all the time about masterminds. How much of that is tactical, and how much of that is just the energy of being around people that are playing and thinking bigger? It's
both. And that's a really good point, Gabe, because some people, they look at a mastermind like, okay, what am I going to get out of it? You know, what's this little technique or strategy that's going to solve all my problems? And sometimes, I mean, more than not, you will find little strategies like that make all the difference, that can save you thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes or business growth or other things like that. But the biggest really benefit is the connections. It's just the friendships. If you go in with an attitude of, I want to serve anybody in this group that I can help with my own little area of genius and learn from theirs, but not be a taker. Like, just go in to connect, to be a good guy, be a good friend, and learn and share. If somebody needs to know something, be willing to share with them. And just by doing that, if you show up with a servant attitude of, I want I want to serve others, you get it back in spades just from that connection. And also you level your own game up when you see people playing at a higher level, because you just see what's possible. I think that was something that stood out to me.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, that's very much my same experience. So,
but also,
thank you.
But also beyond, I mean, masterminds, that's a perfect example of this, but like in other words, I had to learn this. Like, for example, when I spent, GoAbundance isn't cheap. So like the first time I paid that membership, I was like, man, I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had enough net worth, but just barely. And I was like, and up until that, like when I spent money, like I'd take home like a used Honda or something, like you'd take something home that day. And this was the first time I was like, man, this is just gone. And now I got to sort of figure it out. But I also feel like whether it's a mastermind or life in general, you can tell who's transactional. You can tell who shows up and just wants something out of you and then disappears. Or you can tell the folks, the men and women who show up and are like, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to be a part of the tribe, a part of the crew, so like, I love that you said that. And Gabe talks about that a lot. Like this game, whether it's dentistry or investing or what, the game of life is played by those best, I think, that really, really give into their relationships. And like,
well, isn't that just true for life though? It's funny that you mentioned like, I didn't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm going to provide value. I even told that I dropped my kids off this morning at school. I'm like, hey, I'm always like dadisms, they call them. They get so irritated with me. I'm like, hey, like if you forget everything, like, or if you don't really know where to go, just like how can I provide value here? So like you went into GoAbundance, how can I provide value here? Like we go into like 0 to 100, like we started this, like, how can we help people? How, and it's turned into a business. Like if you're giving, you're receiving. And so again, like Mitch even says this, like, how can you go, like billionaires just solve big problems and provide value to an amazing amount of,
And they're connectors, again, right? They're playing on a different level. They're not transactional. They're like puzzle. They like put together puzzles of people and they can, I love that. But I think that's
sometimes amazing. He's a little soul sucking. I don't know if that's being a taker or a maker. But be a maker, Mitch.
Well, this is what happens when you talk to somebody every day for hours. It starts to go sour. So,
but
anyway.
Not Garth, because Garth is one of the nicest guys that I've ever met.
I have never
heard Garth say one. I have never heard Garth say one bad thing about anyone. Also, one thing I noticed about you, Garth, since I've known you, and you said this about when you were younger, but I've noticed it to this day, is like you're willing to try stuff. Like since I've known you, we've had multiple conversations one-on-one or even, within the mastermind of like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about trying this. And in a very cool way, kind of like this childlike, hey, I don't know it all. I'm willing to try stuff. And if it works, I'm going to double down. And if not, you also shut it down and move on pretty quickly. Is that just your nature or something that you've been conscious of or why? I don't feel like a lot of adults have that willingness, but you definitely do.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think it's probably a little of both. If you've ever taken your Colby score, I'm higher on the quick start. And as such, I'm willing to try something out. It's like, jumping out of an airplane going, okay, yeah, I'm going to jump. And then you're on your way down going, oh, wow, do I have a parachute?
Gotta figure this out. Yeah.
It can be good and bad at times. Like it's been good because I'm willing to try new things. It's been bad because I'm also guilty of chasing that next shiny object. There's always something better to try, I got that when I went in GoAbundance. All these awesome guys are doing all kinds of crazy, amazing things. So let me try a little of that. Let me try a little of that. And I had some relatives that owned farmland and did really well. I bought a farm, a cherry orchard here in the Tri-Cities soon after I got out, which looking back, it was so dumb. If I would have just gone all in on just buying duplexes, triplexes, mobile home parks, it would have been, even though I did buy some, I could have bought so much more had I not been messing around with the farm. But, looking back, it is what it is. But I guess it's a blessing and a curse, but I definitely am willing to just try something and see how it works.
Well, so is your focus now buy and hold cash flow real estate?
100%. That's solely my focus here.
Well, isn't a cherry orchard cash flow? Is that, I don't even know anything about the economics of a farm. Maybe we should get a farm specialist.
Garth ate all the cherries, so there's nothing.
Yeah, I did. No, it was fun in that there is just a feeling of abundance when you go into this. I mean, this orchard had been around since the 50s. I mean, literally there were thousands and thousands of pounds of cherries every year. Even in a bad year, you'd have thousands of tons of cherries. So it's like you could literally feed the entire city cherries. Like, so that does feel like abundance. And the first year I actually made good money. Like, we bought it in February and we then had the harvest. It was a good year for the harvest, and we got almost 200,000 in. And I'm like, I just felt like I hit a home run. I'm like, this is awesome. But what you don't realize is you've got expenses throughout the whole rest of the year, and you've got to hire pickers and sprayers and
cherries are also kind of like, we have cherries locally. I'm in Hood River, Oregon. It's kind of like it's like boom or bust. You can have some years that are like amazing, and then you get like one bad weather day and like
it rains too early and they all split or something. Yeah.
Do you still own the cherry orchard?
No, I sold it, and grateful I did. I made money the first year, kind of broke even the next 2 years, and then lost money the last 2 years. And that's kind of when it really sunk in. I'm like, all my rentals are making money. And I literally worked, I would have been better off if I was like working this part-time job at McDonald's financially than having, the one silver lining. I ended up buying a 30-acre parcel in West Richland, Washington, that we were planning on putting a cherry orchard, and built our home. We did build our home on it, but we didn't build the 30-acre cherry orchard, which I'm glad we didn't. And the property's really gone up in value. It's right near the path of growth in the Tri-Cities. So that's been a win that just kind of by default. But overall, yeah, I think if you're going to do farming, you have to have a lot of acreage and a lot of different crops, because that way one may do bad, one may do good, but you can overall do well with,
But I commend you for it, though, because like I feel like you're one of those guys. You're not going to look back on your life when you're older, and sit there and go, that was boring. Like, you're like dentist and a doctor and like super, but you're scrappy. You're like putting out bandit signs for toothaches, and you're buying a cherry orchard. Like, that to me is like,
that's why you're a multi-millionaire.
A mistake. It's like, you're just like scrappy, and you're after it.
Well, he's an action taker. Like, he's willing to take action. Like, I feel like that holds a lot of people up. Garth, you said you're like, I read the books, I had the knowledge. Well, a lot of people read the books and have the knowledge. There's a lot of people out there that have read all the same books you've read. They've listened to all the audiobooks, all the podcasts, and they've never bought a property. So like, I commend you on the action taking part. I also want to ask, what does your portfolio look like today? And what do you, I hate saying end game, because I don't think there's an end to this game if you treat life like a game and you enjoy it. But what's your portfolio look like today, and where are you headed?
Yeah. So right now my portfolio is a mix of several single family homes, duplexes, triplex, and a mobile home park. And mainly in Washington and Idaho, and then also own my 2 dental buildings, one in Kennewick, one in Yakima, and that is kind of where my new focus is going to be buying commercial, medical, dental space, because of all my investments, that's by far the easiest, least headache.
Triple net.
Triple net.
Triple net,
awesome. Where the business is renting from. The dentist is renting his own space, and looking at doing that more, where either I will buy the building, the dentist will be there, or ideally even just partner. That way we're totally equally aligned on the goal of having the highest rents, but paying yourself.
So are you saying that dentists are easier tenants than mobile home park tenants? Is that what you're saying, Garth?
Just a little bit. I mean, they all have their headache, but you don't have anybody like, you don't get calls where somebody says, hey, somebody's chasing his girlfriend naked with a crowbar in the park.
No, usually it's with us in our mobile home park.
Did you hear that? It was actually machete. Yeah.
Or Gabe had a fun weekend. He had videos of somebody literally, he's got cameras of this classy apartment complex where they're literally putting gas on, building up the fire, the flammables, and lighting it on fire.
But like,
did you see that video, Garth? Do you see that?
I did not see the video. No, I mean, that was a phone call. Yeah,
but like perfectly in front of the HD camera, right there. Like, just
your dentists don't do that. They don't. So
usually not. Usually no crowbar naked chasing in the dental office.
Okay, all right.
Well, that's no fun then.
What a boring dental.
What do you do on Sundays, Garth? I don't even know.
So Garth, I love the fact that you're always learning. Like, I also feel like a lot of people get done with school, especially like being a doctor. You'd be like, I've arrived, I've learned, maybe you take continuing education, but you're like, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly learning about new business ideas. And if someone doesn't put a gun to my head and say, you either have to be an action taker or you have to be really, really damn good at the numbers. And I mean, like, yes, that's important, but like action taking is what gets you. Now, you know, us action takers sometimes make mistakes and you fall on your face and you make dumb decisions, but you learn from it. And I would say you're at where you're at because you're like, hell yeah, let's take action and course correct as you go along. And so triple net medical is your number one choice for asset classes. What's your second favorite asset class?
My second now, well, I forgot the short-term rentals. I've got a short-term rental in Maui and then 2 rentals in Cabo San Lucas. And those are investment / lifestyle. It's a little of both. The Maui one was killing it. It was actually doing really well as an investment till they had the fire in Maui. And then that really slowed down the short-term rentals. We were even renting that one as a FEMA, where we're getting paid by FEMA. It's a whole other story, but we were getting paid by FEMA to rent it to people that, you know, fire victims that were out of their house. And FEMA had rented all these properties, and about half of them never even got tenants. Like, we never even got a tenant in our property for whatever reason, the wisdom of.
But you were getting paid.
But I was getting paid at least, you know. So like,
wait, are you saying the federal government makes mistakes and is
Never.
inefficient?
Oh,
sometimes?
I knew we were going
Aren't they
there.
the
I knew we
most
were going to go there.
well-oiled
I love it.
machine? I mean, this is so new to me. Yeah.
It's not wasting. I mean, the federal government wastes money. That's
not at all. Not at all.
So-
Garth, how dare you? Yeah.
Airbnb is your second favorite cash flowing asset class under triple net?
Yeah,
I would say
if
third
FEMA's
because
paying them.
I would say they can be great, but also they can be real hit and miss. Like with Maui, even with Cabo, we love visiting there, and we met some really cool couple there that helped us, that were from the States, that were real estate investors and helped us buy our both properties. They helped us and helped manage. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have, just because of the complexity of owning out of country. But I would say my second now is sober living. I just recently got into that with a single family home with sober living, and that's been pretty good, where it pays more than I would just if I was renting it as a single family. And so looking at that as my second option. But again, I've been guilty my whole life of the shiny object, and so I'm trying to stay focused on, first and foremost, the medical dental. And if a good single family home option comes along, ideally with seller financing, that would be a sober living, then I'll also consider that.
And
Garth,
sober
I
living's like
get-
triple net, right? You're renting to like an operator. that
Yes.
manages. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Garth, I get a lot of triple net medical stuff sent my way. I'd love to chat with you more about that. Most of my triple net stuff is large industrial, but I get a lot of medical, including dental, sent my way.
Yes.
I'd love to buy a property with you.
Let's do it. No, honestly, I would love that, Gabe. Let's partner on a property,
I'll be an
and
LP.
ideally drag in one of the physicians or the dentist in the deal, and that way
100%.
Oh, seriously.
they're not going anywhere. Yeah.
100%.
Well, and I love that you owned a business. You sold the business, but you kept the real estate. And I tell people that all the time. Because that's a part of your retirement. I do want to. So you actually bought another bit. You bought a business and then acquired another business, or did you just buy the one business?
Bought the one and then started the second from scratch. We bought the real estate, but then we just started a new practice in Yakima from scratch, and that there was definitely a learning curve to it, but it's luckily we were able to grow it, and it's paying for itself, and we still own the real estate, and so that's been good. And which reminds me of and I can't remember where I heard it, but the guy said essentially you want to own a business to own real estate versus own real estate to own a business. Like so there's real value in your business owning real estate.
I think Mitch
The Ray
said
Kroc
that.
model. The guy's not selling hamburgers, man. He's using hamburgers to buy, premium real estate all across the country. Do you still own your original houses that you bought in South Carolina, your single family, or did you?
I don't, and at this point, I wish I did. I honestly wish I didn't sell anything. We owned it for years. We owned it all through while we were in Germany. We moved to the Tri-Cities. I think we sold most of it around 2013, 14, when the market finally kind of stabilized again. And it was more just a headache factor. We couldn't get good property management. They would move somebody in. Yeah, I know. You can't think that would be a problem, right? But yeah, that was. We changed. We tried different property managers, and still, they'd move some joker in. They'd be there for a month and stop paying rent.
They're the worst.
Yeah. Property managers and the federal government. Yeah.
So
do you like your mobile home park?
I love our mobile home park. That's actually been good. Would love to buy. In fact, I'm glad you said that, because also that's on my radar. If a good mobile home park deal came along, I would love to buy a mobile home park.
When Travis asked what your favorite asset class was, he was hoping you were going to say
he was steering
mobile home park. That's fourth, Travis. That's his fourth favorite.
He was fishing for sure.
Well, and honestly, I'm open to buying with good operators too. I know you guys do that, and you have got it dialed in really well. And so I would definitely be open to mobile home parks. I wish I would have bought a lot more 5 years ago, because now they've become sexy and in vogue,
Don't we all? Yeah.
I think
walk and hit a 10 cap. Everywhere you went.
I think there's a long runway though. Lot rents are pretty low across the country. I think we might be saying that 5 years from now as well. In other words,
I think we will. I think in 10 years, man, lot rents are only 400. Now they're 800.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So yeah, that is still, I still get listings and still would definitely invest with good operators, because you have to have good operators, even more so than like a duplex or something like that. But if it's done right, those are cash cows. And I also look at them as it's a zone it free card, whatever you want it to be zoned in the future. If you wanted to switch it to apartments or to commercial or residential, most cities would happily switch it.
Unfortunately, you're right. So hey, Garth, we're top of the hour. I want to pivot a little bit, because I want to make sure we talk about lifestyle dentist, because I know you're getting busy with that. Are you about a year into that or two now? I can't remember when you
officially about a year. Yeah, it was kind of in the idea. I sold my practice, partnered, because I'm still have a 5-year kind of golden handcuffs, they call it, where I've got at least 5 years. And it has been a good partnership. Like, I still am the managing partner of our practice. It's been growing. There's still a piece of equity that's really growing. That's going to hopefully be a really nice second bite of the apple. And so it's been good, but I'm doing a little of both right now, because I still am in the practice till 2027 at least.
Got it.
And so, but it also, when I partnered, it made me think, okay, what am I going to do for this next chapter of my life? And I've always enjoyed the business side of dentistry and investing. And there's a lot of dentists, unfortunately, a lot of physicians, dentists in general, that make good money, but they're like two weeks away from being broke. It's sad. I mean, they make really good money, but they know how to spend. They've got all the boats, all the fancy cars, the fancy home, and they don't have any assets. That's one of the biggest lessons that dentists and physicians in general, if they learn, hey, use your business as a source of revenue to then buy cash flowing real estate. Well, any cash flowing asset, but my favorite by far is cash flowing real estate.
Ours too, Garth. Ours too. Just want you to know that.
It's amazing.
I'm glad we're aligned.
It's amazing. Like, you don't learn that in dentistry school, right? In other words, you're coming in going, hey guys, like, let me help you build a castle versus just like be a rat in your own wheel, because and it's an impressive wheel. I mean, you guys do amazing work, but
I don't think dentists are all rats.
It's still a wheel. So,
but that's unfortunately, that's a lot of Americans, right? And not just Americans. That's a lot of people worldwide. It's paycheck to paycheck for most Americans, whether they're making a lot of money or a little bit of money. That book, The Millionaire Next Door, that was written in the 70s, if you remember, they were going out looking for people that were wealthy. And what they found in a lot of these fancy neighborhoods were high salary earners that were broke. Just like what Garth was saying, they were 1 month away from like nothing, So
well, I don't know how many times I talk to, because I hold physicians in the absolute highest regard, and they're not rats. Maybe we can edit that part out what Mitch said, but even as a kid, I oh my gosh, like that's amazing. But I've talked to like people that are highly specialized surgeons, dentists, people that make an obscene amount of money that a lot of people, or what would seem like an obscene amount of money, a lot of people like envy that. And sometimes they feel like they have to hold up that lifestyle. Like, I'm a physician, so I need the car and I need the house. But when you actually really like dig deep with a lot of them, they're just like, I have a good buddy that's 60 and he's a surgeon. He's like, I want to break out of this because I'm still trading my hours for dollars. And so I would say I love that. Like, make a lot of money, control your spending, and invest in assets now that generate generational passive income. Mm-hmm. And then you can go buy the fancy car. You can use the self-storage facility to buy the Ferrari, not the
It has to be assets. Making money and building wealth are not the same. Like,
Yes.
it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, it's how much you invest. I mean, if people can wrap their minds around making money and building wealth being completely different things, I think it's a game changer, because they're not anywhere near the same.
Yeah. Well, for example, one dentist that I'm coaching in North Carolina, and I won't tell his name just for privacy, but he was paying about $300,000 a year in taxes. And with just some strategy, some basic strategy we went over this year, he's going to save about $600,000 in taxes. And that's life-changing. I mean, that's real, even for a dentist, that's life-changing, real wealth.
Just out of curiosity, obviously we're not giving tax advice on this show. Go talk to your CPA, blah, 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 disclaimer. But is that getting professional real estate status, or is that using passive losses against active income? Is that?
Yeah, all the above, as far as having the spouse be an active real estate investor. He had bought real estate. His CPA had the wrong CPA. His CPA didn't even mention anything about tax segregation and things like that. And I give my knowledge, but I make a big disclaimer. I am not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. But I have good CPAs, good financial planners that I know and work with. So I recommended a good CPA for him. And yeah,
and you have your personal experience. You're not just saying it. These are things that you've done and you're implementing, and you've created this life for yourself so that you're able to.
Not to go on a tangent, but like, what a great professor you are. Like, sometimes you hear about these business schools where you're like, why is the professor, like, what has the professor actually done? And I think, higher education is coming under attack. I mean, not if you're becoming a dentist or an architect or an engineer or a physician, but it's also like, you're sitting there, you're probably providing, I mean, obviously not the dentistry part, but like the part you're teaching these dentists is better than any business class they could have taken. They're understanding how to leverage assets, how to offset active income, like how to buy real estate in one LLC and rent to yourself. Like, there's like invaluable lessons.
But that's why 0 to 100's
growing
quickly. That's why you're going to do really successful, Garth. That's why, in other words, like being in a college setting is so much different than speaking to people who have done it and are doing it and live it and experience it, but yet they're giving back through information or coaching or whatever that medium is. Like, it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
It's the difference between just hearing about something and having somebody you can call and say, hey, I'm in this situation, what would you do? And yeah, a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know. And so if you can have somebody who's been there, done that, as you guys can, if somebody's buying a mobile home park and you can say, hey, you really need to look into the expenses and into the financials, whatever else it is, that could potentially take them from a home run deal to a nightmare situation. But when you're new, you just don't know what you don't know. And so to have somebody on your side that can kind of guide you and get in a 1 hour phone call can save you more than probably what you paid them, is so worthwhile.
Yeah, you'd like, what's the ROI? That guy paid you your coaching fee and it's going to save several $100,000. And by the way, not mentors, masterminds. One side is like the energy, you're expanding your mindset. The other piece is some of the tactical knowledge. The third piece is, hey, I got a guy.
Yes.
I got a girl. Right. I know. So I've got a good CPA, or I've got someone that I can connect to. I have a good lender that specializes in dental practices, or I have somebody like that. Sometimes like even with Gabe, I'm like, hey, Gabe, I really need to find a good lending broker that specializes in this particular asset class. And Gabe's like, I got a guy. And the guy saved my ass last year. So yeah, connections. It's all about the connections.
Garth, on the topic of connections and being in the right room, one of the benefits we have for our elite 0 to 100 members is they get the opportunity to stay on with our guests and do a live Q&A for about 30 minutes. So if you have the time and are willing to do that, a lot of our elites are on this call listening live, but at the end of the show, we'll transition over and they'll be able to ask you questions directly. It's been a big benefit, I think, for our elite members to be able to get face to face with our podcast guests.
Happy to. And on that note, and sincerely, Travis, Mitch, and Gabe, I'd be happy to help you guys any way I can, because really you have made a life-changing difference for me. Just our friendship since joining GoBundance, and having somebody where I can ask something, be that a financial question or a family situation. With our mastermind, we've been through all kinds of different discussions, as you guys know, and it's so nice to have a brother that's walking alongside you that you can reach out to. So yeah, happy to help any way I can.
Appreciate it, Garth.
The feeling's mutual, my friend. Absolutely. We have one last question we ask all our guests, and I guess I'll just take us out of here really fast. So we call this the "You're on your buddy's couch" question. Well, we used to ask who's the most attractive, and my name kept coming
Actually,
up,
one
so
more than people thought, even though
that.
I'm kind of average. So
I would think, it's a bit of a mix. If you could have Mitch's head, Travis's face, and Gabe's body, like that would be like, a Greek
we
god.
haven't gotten that.
I feel like this is something Garth has thought about before. That's weird.
Garth, why were you so prepared with that, man? I mean,
said my face. I thought I've been
So prepared. Too prepared. Too prepared.
I love that.
my moneymaker, my face.
I love how it's just my head
So
too. Everyone else gets like a body
question.
or a face, It's like I just get a head.
Yeah, Mitch just gets the
Garth
top.
already has the top of your head. Oh.
Okay, so
I know,
you're
I
on the
know.
couch. You've lost everything. You're on a buddy's couch. You've lost all your money, and you lost all your assets. And we used to say you had your network, but you don't get your network anymore. You lost your network. Like, what do you do? What's the first week, the first month? Like, what are the things that you're going to do to go build your life back up again?
Yeah, first thing, I would need some cash, so I would get whatever job I could, a vertical income to just have money coming in, whatever that would be. And then second thing I would do is buy a house. I would literally buy a house with my either an FHA loan or a VA loan with as little money down, rent every room in that house I could. So I would live in one room and rent all the rest of the house out. That way it's cash flowing. And then I would buy the next one a year later. But in the meantime, I would just ramp up my vertical income. And then as soon as I could also buy more property, I would do it with seller financing, where if I could find a good deal, I would either buy something seller financing and or find a deal and find investors that say, hey, I just found this amazing deal. I'll be the finder. You guys be the finances, and either we partner together or I would wholesale initially to get things going. But I would try to find deals.
I say this all the time, man. You're pairing capital with opportunity, and knowledge is power, right? Because we didn't say you'll lose your knowledge. If you have knowledge, people forget that. They think raising or partnering people with capital, you're doing them a favor. But I'll tell you, like, if someone comes to me and says, I have the knowledge, I uncovered this amazing opportunity no one else saw, maybe it's below market rents or whatever the case is, and we can go add a ton of value to this. Like, and they're a good operator, like, I'm going to invest with you all day long, because idle cash in the bank account isn't doing anybody any favors.
But it's interesting how fast you're really saying, hey, I'm going to put my name on assets as fast as I can, because you know that those are going to grow for you. You're going to have roommates that pay your own rent, that get you free from, like, in other words, like I see people, I have family that are waiting for years to buy a house because they're like, well, I got to get everything in line and I got to save up this much and I got to do this. And then I'm going to get a job there. And then I'll think about it. And like, you're like, man, I'm going to get food on the table. I'm going to go buy an asset. And I'm going to buy another asset. And I'm going to buy an asset. Yeah.
We also talk about, we call, Garth, the R1 framework in this tribe. It's like, how can you go from nothing to scaling to over 100 units and hitting what we call R1, which is retirement number one, where your passive income covers your living and lifestyle. And there really is a framework. And it's funny, like, we have our own, we each had our own journey. Mitch and I was more aligned because we met early on. You had your journey, Gabe had his journey. We talked to other people in masterminds or on this show. And almost everybody starts with what we call in our 0 to something phase, which is like, I bought a house and I rented the rooms, a house hack, or I bought one side of a duplex, and then the next step is usually I bought a small commercial property and understand force.
It's that initial leverage though. It's that initial tiny little seed of leverage
it's the knowledge and then actually taking action on that information.
So if you're this show is brought to you by School of Scale and the Elite Mastermind. If you want to know about the R1 framework and you want to network with badasses, like, go check our website out at 0to100tribe.com and go learn these things. So Garth, man, like, so happy we had you on the show. Thank you so much for spending time. You're a busy, important human. And so spending time with us and helping provide value to us and our guests is always greatly appreciated. So for those of you,
my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Garth.
Yeah.